All right, I'm Phillip Roberts, and we're going to take a few minutes and talk about insects as we try to finish out this crop. First and foremost, camp and everybody that's talking is talking about making good decisions and returns on investment, right? The only way we can make a good decision about insects is to know what's in the field and use thresholds. The hard work's been done. Thresholds are designed to maximize profits. Our objective as a grower is not to eliminate insects. Our objective as growers are to maximize profits. Thresholds work. Scouting works. We know that. You know that. I will put a plug in. Those are the dates for the scout schools for 2026. It's always the second Tuesday in June at Midville at the station. We'd love to have you. When we talk about insects, it's all about being knowledgeable. Stay connected with your county agents. A lot of our county agents have newsletters. Great resource. Know what's going on so we can make good decisions. Dr. Hand mentioned the podcast. The Cotton team also puts out a newsletter. A lot of times our county agents will customize that to their local situation. So make sure you're on those county agent newsletters. We got a lot of county agents who do a great job. But it's all about making good decisions with insects. So when we think of insects in Georgia, from here to the end of the year, the number one insect you're going to treat, and we treat the majority of acres in the state for stink bugs, right? There's no question about it. We worked really hard to develop good scouting methods for stink bugs. And the way we do that is we select bolls at random in a field, and we look for something we call internal boll damage. Many of you have done that. But here's a picture showing what we define as internal boll damage. The little callus growths or warts on the inner surface of the boll wall are stained lint. Our thresholds are based on a percentage of bolls which are damaged, okay? It's very easy. It doesn't take as long as you think to do this. It's important you select a boll that's the appropriate size. If it's too hard to bust in your hand, that bowl's too old. That boll may have been damaged 10 days ago. Well, we don't need to know what happened 10 days ago. We want to know what's happening today when you're making a decision about spraying stink bugs. And the way we do that is sample those bowls that are about the diameter of a quarter. Now we have a threshold. We report damage as percent of bowls with damage. Well, we like to refer to it as a dynamic threshold for stink bugs. That threshold changes by week of bloom. All you guys know this already, but the 3rd, 4th, and 5th weeks of bloom is a very, very critical time to be on top of stink bug management. And the reason is pretty simple. During that window of bloom, that's when we have the greatest number of bolls per plant that are susceptible to stink bug feeding. A lot of you growers in this room, I feel pretty confident, you probably spray about the 3rd week of bloom. I feel pretty confident a lot of you in this room probably spray 2 weeks later. Okay? I'm not going to argue with that. I'm going to tell you we have tons of research and we have more confidence for how and when to spray a stink bug than any other pest we deal with in cotton. Several years ago, Cotton Incorporated and all the commissions across the Southeast funded a regional project. It was a huge success. And Ed, still today, what happened on the stink bug project, we as entomologists in the Southeast are still a very close-knit group and still do regional projects. But we have a lot of confidence. Now, in terms of stink bugs, again, this is some review, but I'm going to get to a point. When we look at boll damage, we don't know what species of stink bug caused that damage. It could be southern green stink bug, it could be brown stink bug, and there is a difference. Now, we really hadn't had really high stink bug problems in many years. I mean, part of that is because a lot of people are just spraying that 3rd and 5th week of bloom. But we always need to be familiar with which species we have in that field. If we have a lot of brown stink bugs, That's something you need to know as a grower because you can make a better decision. All right, and here's what we're talking about. If you're dealing with southern green or even green stink bug, pyrethroids do an excellent job. Very, very good on southern green stink bugs. OP such as bidrin or orthine, very good on the green species. But if you have a lot of brown stink bugs, pyrethroids are only going to be about 50% control of the brown stink bug, okay? Organophosphates like bidrin or orthine still very good. They don't care what color it is. So just be aware. I know I've gotten some pictures from some scouts on this side of the state and agents on this side of the state, and a lot of them have been brown stink bugs. So just be aware. And when you're in the field, if you're seeing browns, let's adjust our management just slightly. Perhaps we could add a low dose of bidrin with a pyrethroid to pick up browns, or just run bidrin. All right, now here's where I'm kind of going with this. And this slide's a very, very old slide from probably 20 years ago. But when we talk about bowl feeding bugs, we think of stink bugs initially. But in reality, there are several species that can feed on developing bowls. Up here on the top right, this is the immature clouded plant bug. This is a leaf-footed bug. They can feed on bowls. Here's a tarnished plant bug nymph. They can feed on bowls. So there's this complex of insects that actually can feed on developing bowls. Now I want to spend a little time talking about tarnished plant bugs. And this past winter, as we went around the state, we talked about some issues we had in the southwestern part of the state with tarnished plant bugs during bloom. I guess it was 2023, there was a year where you dealt with plant bugs here on some of your pre-bloom cotton. But I think most people are very comfortable. We want to maintain 80% retention prior to bloom. But in this late season, we had some problems in 24. We're seeing some issues this year in 25 on the west side of the state. Growers are doing a much better job managing it. But I want to share a little bit of information, and I want to explain to you why it's important that you get out and look so you can make the right decision. Showed this slide also during the winter meetings. But plant bugs usually feed on small squares. That's where they prefer to feed, but they can feed on a large square. That square is probably bigger than a pencil eraser. But if a plant bug feeds on a large square, the plant may decide to try to make that position. And when that square blooms, the bloom will be dirty. If you go back in your fields and you're seeing dirty blooms, that needs to be something that you need to be aware of. That suggests you have plant bugs in the field, okay? So that's an important thing if you have plant bugs, because we're going to have to tweak our management. Here's a picture of some bowls with damage, had internal bowl damage. I'm convinced this was tarnished plant bug. Wasn't a stink bug in this field where I took these pictures, okay? So understand that plant bugs can do this, and we're seeing issues to the west. I also showed you this slide, and this is my rendition of where plant bugs were most problematic, that dark shaded area. Now we're, over in this part of the state, but one of the reasons we got in trouble with plant bugs in that problem area is because growers were just spraying bifenthrin the 3rd week of bloom, the 5th week of bloom, thinking everything is just fine. But it wasn't. We were not controlling tarnished plant bug with pyrethroids. And we actually had a little bit of information on resistance. Back in 2018, Ed, part of a regional stuff, we worked with Sally Taylor, who's now with Cotton Incorporated. She was at Virginia Tech. They generated some susceptibility information, and we commonly use something called a resistant ratio. The higher the resistant ratio, the higher the resistance level. But in 2018, our resistance ratio to bifenthrin was 2. In 2024, where we were having some problems, Worked with my colleague at Auburn, same type of study, the resistance ratio was over 75. So we knew we weren't killing them just by what we were seeing in the field with a pyrethroid. And then we backed it up with data that says, hey, there's a problem. Now I share that problem with you. So me, as an entomologist, what you want me to do for you in the state of Georgia, we decided to sample plant bugs this spring and check the susceptibility of plant bugs across the state of Georgia. So we went from down here in Grady County with Cale Cloud, Terrell County with Seth, Justin Hand and Tiff, Macy, up in Turner, and came over here to East Georgia. We had Bill Starr, here's Pam Sapp up in Jefferson County. So we went to all these different counties because I want to know if bifenthrin or a pyrethroid is going to kill a plant bug over here. We did it right here in this county with Bill Tyson. But we collected plant bugs during March and April off of wild radish. Plant bugs like anything with a flower. It was not difficult for us to find plant bugs even in Bullock County, Bill. That don't mean they're going to get on cotton, but they were on that radish that day. So we tested those for susceptibility to bifenthrin. Because I think that you need to know whether bifenthrin or a pyrethroid is going to kill a plant bug over in this side of the state. The way we did that, just so you know, we'd collect these plant bugs and we mixed up a spray solution, and we looked at a lot of different rates, but we mixed it up like we were going to apply 10 gallons to the acre, okay? We looked at a lot of different rates. But we'd take a piece of green bean, we'd buy organic green beans, but we still washed them because not all organic green beans are truly organic. But we would wash them well and dip them in that insecticide solution. And we looked at rates from a quarter rate all the way to an 8x rate. But the information I'm showing here is survival or mortality, the percent we killed with a 1x rate of bifenthrin, 6.4 ounces of bifenthrin. And across those counties, we ranged from killing as little as 3% in Dooley County. Our highest, only killing 3% in Dooley County, we killed 45% in Tiff County. But the point is, that's when you dip a green bean in a solution. It's not like spraying a few droplets on a leaf. So I'm pretty confident a field use of this would even be less control. You with me? But the point I want you to see, here's Jefferson. We actually had 2 locations in Jefferson. Here's Bullock, where we are today, 32% control. Candler County, 27%. Jenkins, 33%. The point I want to make here is if you've got plant bugs in the field, your pyrethroid is not going to kill them. Y'all with me? You buying me? Now, so I think it's obvious pyrethroid is not going to control plant bug. We're going to spray pyrethroids for stink bugs, right? Not going to change anything. A lot of you going to spray stink bugs with bifenthrin. That's good. But I'm telling you, you need to make sure you don't have a plant bug in the field. You need to be looking for those dirty blooms. If you see a dirty bloom, we really need to use a drop cloth. And I know you're not every acre over here has a scout. I get that. But you've got to understand if you have a plant bug. If you don't have plant bugs in the field, don't worry about it. You don't have a problem. But if you have plant bugs, it would be great to use a drop cloth. But if you have plant bugs, we just need to treat that field like you're dealing with brown stink bugs. You can add a little bidrin or acephate with a pyrethroid, or you can run just bidrin or acephate. Just a small tweak, a tiny, tiny decision can make the difference in success and failure. It's not a big deal if you know what's out there and you make the right decision. When we make the wrong decision, it could get get bad. Where plant bugs are a problem in Georgia, it's not as widespread this year, and I think it's because growers are doing a better job. But where they're a problem, they're a problem. Where they're not, they're not. Historically, they're not a problem in this side of the state. But you've got to be aware of it, because if you encounter it, you got to get it right on that first decision to maximize profits. One last thing, and this is sharing information. This is not a problem, but this is for us to try to learn. Recently, we discovered a new insect in the state of Georgia. This is an insect that was found in Puerto Rico in 2023. It was found in South Florida in 2024. We found it in Georgia, or we think it's the insect in Georgia. They found it in South Carolina up around Blackville. My colleague, Dr. Jeremy Green over there, they found it in Alabama. But it's called a two-spot cotton leafhopper. If you want to read more about it, you can do that QR code. But we have found it in Georgia. It likes okra. But here's some of the damage. There's an okra patch, sunflower patches. If you got dove fields, I would love to come help you sample for this insect in September. But I would be more than happy to do so. But what we're looking for, this is a leafhopper. And you're kind of looking for hopper burn. You guys are familiar with hopper burn on peanuts from a leafhopper? Sometimes I get this leaf distortion. I don't anticipate this to be a problem in 2025 at all. But we in Extension, and you as growers, we need to know where this thing is. Justin Modem over there in Seminole County, July 9th. That was 2 weeks ago, Justin. A lot's happened in 2 weeks ago. Justin took some really good pictures, but the way we're going to recognize it is these 2 black dots on the wings. Looks like it'll be really easy to recognize. But we found it in Seminole, Justin did. Cale Cloud found it in Grady County. Will Brown down in Appling County. Will Brown in Appling County probably gets the prize for the highest level of insects, but they were on okra. They really like okra. We found them in cotton in Tifton on the station. We are actively sampling cotton with Justin in Seminole County, with Brian Hayes in Mitchell County, Justin Hand in Tift County, and we're going to Plains, and we're sampling at Midville. So we're trying to understand the distribution, but I've mentioned this to you. If you have an okra patch, look at it. And if you see this insect, let your county agent know. You agents out there, let's take a look at okra patches, see if we can find this insect. We need to know the distribution in the state. They're very tiny. Justin did a good job taking these pictures. Put some on a penny, because that's not a good picture, but there are 8 of these little jacids on this penny. They're tiny. But they suck on the leaf. They're going to be on the underside of the leaf. You'll see them on okra. They turn the leaves yellow on okra. So we'd like to know the distribution. But I personally think there's low numbers all over the place, but time will tell. In the last 2 weeks, we did figure out how to kill it. We did a little bioassay with Cale Cloud. We got some bugs out of Grady County. Again, we only looked at mortality 24 hours after we sprayed. We sprayed some cotton leaves, picked the leaves, put them in a peach plate, dumped bugs on them. So the good news is we can kill it with orthene or bidrin. Looks like a cell, which is something we use for whiteflies, is going to have some activity. Centric, some of you are familiar with. It's unfortunate. It doesn't appear pyrethroid's going to work. So again, it's going to be one of these things we may have to tweak our insecticide selection a little bit. But we really just want to know where it is. And if you could help us out, you agents, we kind of need to see where this thing's distributed. 10 seconds on whiteflies. Still feel good about whiteflies. In our whitefly areas, Mark, we're picking up single whiteflies. It's going to be weather dependent. If we get dry, we may deal with it on some late cotton. We do have a website. A lot of you are familiar that we run these little yellow sticky cards. And you can do this link right here. We update this every week. Some of you agents, there's some agents that started volunteering. If you want to run some whitefly cards, we can fix you up. And but anyway, feel good about where we are on whiteflies. With that, I want to thank the commission for all they do to support us as a cotton team. And I'm done. Any questions? I want a new picture. This was from 2012. Best cotton I've ever seen in my life. I want a new picture. That picture was taken in Mitchell County, Brian. It was 2,200 pounds.
On the plant bugs, you see the dirty bloom, how does that affect that bowl?
The question was, when you see a dirty bloom, how does it affect that bowl? We've tagged a lot of dirty blooms and followed that bowl to maturity and had blooms that were dirty and blooms that weren't dirty because we wanted to be able to use that as a threshold, but it don't work. Sometimes those bowls, if they pollinate, they're fine. If those anthers are so beat up it doesn't pollinate, it'll be hawk-billed, but it's all about pollination. If it's just a little bit of discoloration, it's probably going to be zero effect. But if it's the more severe, you would anticipate you would affect pollination.
And determining between a stink bug and a plant bug, the plant bugs are like a little right size your thumbnail.
Plant bugs are going to go, so how do you determine between stink bug and plant bug? If you bring me a bowl with a diameter of a quarter and I look inside, I can't tell you. But I can tell you a plant bug will feed on a bowl, dime-sized bowl, nickel-sized bowl. Stink bugs feed on quarter-sized bowls. But, yep. All right, yep.
Don't you stand the risk of wearing whiteflies with badging sometimes?
Absolutely.
Is it worse about them?
Yes. Do we flare whiteflies with bidrin? Yes. Is it worse than spraying bifenthrin? Yes. If you have a problem and it's real, you got to deal with it. In whitefly country, we would probably run acephate with bifenthrin to pick up brown stink bugs or plant bugs rather than bidrin. But yes, I hate to say it, but it's a cost of doing business with some pests. That's one of the things in my career, we never talked a lot about plant bugs. Why? We didn't want people overreacting. We're to the point now, you got to understand the problem is real. It may not be on your farm, Ryan, but if it is on your farm, you got to deal with it. And if it's just plant bugs, we can do other creative things. We can run Transform with bifenthrin. Transform is really good plant bug material. It's fairly soft on beneficial insects, but it won't pick up stink bugs. So you have to have that stink bug component. You know, depending on the situation, you know, if you had a lot of whiteflies, which hopefully y'all won't, but in Moultrie, Georgia, you know, their decisions are a little different than over here in Brooklyn. I'll be around the rest of the day. Thank you for your time.